Cash Color Cannabis High Level of Conversation on Livehiphopdaily.tv. Back in the studio after a brief hiatus, man. I feel almost like it's Christmas vacation when we was in high school, and like I'm back in the room and I see everybody, and I'm happy to be back. This episode is sponsored by Atlantis Clothing. Make a fashion statement with Atlantis Clothing. Shop today at atlantisclothing.com. All right, so today, normally we have a mix of everything when we come to the show. We talk about politics, we talk about hip hop, we definitely talk about cannabis culture. But I thought for our first show back, I wanted to really touch on some of the stuff that I guess I've been holding in personally over the last 2 weeks when it comes to some of the images and some of the things that we have seen from brothers being killed by police officers, but the rampant disrespect by police. All this coming into a culmination as we get ready to vote. So I thought rather than just go our regular interviews, I thought I'd bring in some various minds over here to speak about the local elections, speak about the protests and how the protests could possibly spark a new generation of people to vote. Why we're not seeing people vote more and might pay more attention to local elections, the importance of local elections, and just how our feelings are going towards November as black people ready to vote. So again, I thought I put together a variety of people tonight, man. And I'm gonna start by introducing my man DJ Nas, my man Kanata with Hip Hop Gives Back.
What's going on, y'all?
If y'all not familiar with him, I'll let him introduce yourself.
Yeah, real briefly. Most people know me as DJ Knots. Government name when I'm in these kind of arenas is Kanata J. Nicholson, creator and founder of Hip Hop Gets Back. And what we do briefly is we focus on the positive side of the hip hop culture. So anytime you have artists, entertainers, anybody associated with the hip hop industry and they give back, we highlight them. Yeah. We're like our tagline is a home of hip hop humanitarians. We've been around since 2008. We also started our own foundation that focuses on youth programs and young adults as well, which is why this conversation is so timely. But yeah, that's about it. In about 20 seconds. I got better.
He's a professional at this. And next I got my good friend Ariel Cassell. Some people might know her as a photographer, but I do know her as being part of a very important group that's starting up this Thursday called Amplify Action. So speak about yourself, please, a little bit.
Yes, sir. I try to be a woman of many hats. But I am here. I'm the communications director for Amplify Action. We are a nonprofit that is focused on voter education, mobilization, and registration for specifically black men. You all have been denied so much attention and so much focus for so long. Everybody kind of tries to get the male black vote and then moves on. They don't focus on what your needs are, and they don't focus on how suppressed you all have been as a demographic for so long. So we're here to provide a holistic approach to black men, not only wanting to be involved more in the voting process, but also beginning to come involved in the electoral process and eventually gaining those public elected official positions.
Awesome. And last but not least, man, I got my first high school student in here since Damani, man. Since Damani Harris pulled up. But there's a good reason why he's here. We're talking about somebody who's been very active on his scene as far as making sure that that people of his age group understand the importance of voting and getting involved in politics. And that's my man Darian Richards. Darian, introduce yourself.
How you doing? Yeah, like you said, it's been important to me. My mission from day one is to be out and be seen and let people know the importance. And we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and we can't let them down for nothing. So I just wanted to make sure that, like my parents, you guys were the ones before us. So I want to be ready to carry the torch.
Yeah, don't make me feel old right now, bro.
They called you OG right now.
That's it. Like, come on. No, but I totally understand what you're saying, man. Because we're to a point, and I can admit myself, I turned 40 last year. You know what I mean? So I've been able to see 4 decades of a lot of change, and I think that right now we're at a pinnacle where we need to see – we're about to see something. Now, what it's going to be has everything to do with the people sitting here right now. So let's speak about, for one, voting. You know, I had to go vote today, and that's a rarity. Like, normally I get my early vote on. Oh, not today. I was out there today, and I stood in the line for 2 hours to make sure I got my vote in, and I was there at 8 o'clock. Yeah, so I know some people are still down there up until right this moment. I know they had to extend voting lines today. Speak to us about today about local voting, man. You know, what's the energy been like outside from what y'all have seen, you know, saying whether you voted early or whether you even voted today? Like, what is the energy you've seen outside? I mean, either one of y'all can start. I'm sorry.
Well, I did early voting, so that's a little bit easier. I voted last week. I'm out there in Rockdale County, so I'm outside the city. So I was understatement, I know. So the whole process took me about 20 minutes, and this is with the new procedures, with the gloves, with the mask, all of that. So yeah, I was in and out in about 20 minutes. Normally when I early vote, I'm in and out in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So I'm used to it being that way. And part of the reason why I do it is because voting day, I try to do rides to the polls. So I did a little bit of that, but then I had to go to work. So from what I saw, it was a lot of people waiting to actually do something. You know what I mean? Because I was driving around a lot of people who were older and they hadn't been taking part in protests. So they were happy to get this opportunity. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when I've been talking to other people who say they mid-30s and younger, they were like, yo, okay, y'all telling us to do this, so I'm doing it. Yeah. It was that type of vibe.
Yeah,
you know,
I loved it today, man. I thought it was a real good sign to what we're going to see in November, to see that kind of energy out there. Like, how did you feel there?
From what I saw and from what I know,
yeah,
it was hype about it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody posting about it. The same energy that they would bring to a protest, they brought to voting.
Yeah.
Getting people there, the energy while in line, it was still consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and speaking of the protests, I feel like the protests brought a lot of the energy that we have seen today. You know, the death of George Floyd, the visible death of George Floyd, you know, the way we saw it, the way it was consumed on social media and through traditional media, I think that burned something in people. And it kind of spurred what we kind of saw today. What are your feelings? I mean, especially when it comes to the protests. What are your feelings about the protests? Like, when you saw what was going on out there? I mean, I'm not talking about the looting, just the energy that happened around the protests. How did you feel when you saw that, especially coming off for people for a person who most of these people didn't even know?
I definitely think seeing the protests enliven the vision of Amplify.
Yeah.
We are angry. We're upset as a people right now. We're looking for the next step. And I was saying that to him before we started recording that I think that the protests and voter registration go hand in hand. We're upset and we're looking for a way to organize and come together and make a difference. Yeah. And us voting is making a difference. And even going back to some of the voter suppression tactics that we witnessed in person today. I live in Clayton County and I live right by Clayton State University. So I'm in an area that's, I am assuming, isn't as predominantly black as I thought it was, because there wasn't much of a line for the polls. It was a very quick, efficient process. And I think some of the lines that we saw today and some of the technological difficulties that we saw were evidence of voter suppression. And that's part of the reason I think Amplify is so important in partnering with our sisters and brothers that are protesting, in that we need to defeat voter suppression by encouraging more of us to vote. If they suppress some of our votes, if more of us are coming out to vote, they can't suppress all of us.
Yeah.
So I think it's that tool to combat that.
Yeah, you know, one thing I admired to watching the protest last week was the unity. You know, like you saw, it wasn't just it wasn't a block. You know what I'm saying? And if it was a block, it was a block of everybody, you know, who came out and genuinely showed shock and actual like anger towards what they saw with the protest that was obviously spurred by police brutality. You know what I mean? So that's, again, like I really feel like the energy from that really helped out what we're seeing today when it comes to the voting, man. But again, the protest, going back to the protest did take a sharp turn. You know, we did see some looting. We did see some actions that probably stained some of the protests. What was your opinion about just overall seeing some of the negativity that was attached to what was overall a positive situation? And
I think you have to understand a couple things. One, the intention of when you're going, right? There are those who go with the intention to create chaos, and there are those who for the right reasons. So, at the protest I went to, at the time, we had no clue how many people were there. Later find out it was 3,000 people. Yeah. We ended up stopping right in front of a well-known Confederate store. They still sell KKK uniforms, have a big old flag, and we had white people just sitting outside just staring, me mugging us. And not once was there anything hateful said on either side. We kept our mission, and we stayed true, and there was no issue. And I feel like another way to avoid, like you said, rioting and looting is be intentional about how you protest. You know what I mean? Don't stay out till 12 at night, because you know nothing good comes from that. Have unity, have leaders that organize. Shout out to Jada and Maya who led and stayed in front. Don't just have different groups of people just
I think you touched on a big thing, man. You know, I was speaking to Herb earlier how I watched the spook who sat by the door again last night. You know what I mean? I just had one of them modes. And watching how they set up everything with so much organization, and you hit on a key thing. You saw a lot of people, but you didn't see a whole lot of organization. And it was organization. But after a while, when you started seeing the anger and the rage, you knew they was about to spill out to somewhere else, because this anger and rage didn't have a direction. Right. You know what I mean? And at some point, we're going to have to actually recognize that it's past. We're past peacefulness at this point. People are angry, and a lot of this rage is going to have to start being channeled in proper ways. And I think that some of it, even now, even though it's quiet, it doesn't mean it's disappeared. You know what I mean? There's still people out there who really feel like we have to do more than vote and more than peaceful protest. Like, how do y'all feel about that? Like that's still a sentiment that's coming out of the protest.
I think this next step that has happened, and I say next step because when I was out there every day during, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, all of that, we was in Centennial Park, but it didn't get to the part of rioting. You know what I mean? And that's just part of the anguish, the aggression. People are upset, like you said. People have been in the house for 90 days on top of that. So you got all of that, and it's like it's got to come out in some way. Yeah. And I'm not really mad at the riot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not, because that's the only way that's really gonna get that type of attention that we know is needed. You know what I mean? So the looting, okay, like you said, there's so many people out there being opportunistic and are doing it for selfish reasons. Definitely don't co-sign that at all. But when people start complaining about property damage more than loss of life, and that's all their focus is on, then you know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. You know you're doing the right thing when you start seeing so many people come out and you actually see people voice their actual opposition. I think that to the point this conversation of Black Lives Matter that has really kind of gained extra traction thanks to this protest has really force some people to kind of show their hands. You know what I mean? And it's not so much you supporting Black Lives Matter. It's just so much of you. And occasionally I call people who say all lives matter are people who just don't want to be part of the conversation. Like, you'll meet people like that. Like, they'll an uncomfortable conversation, the first thing they want to do is give you an opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like, just tell me you don't want the conversation. Don't tell me all lives matter. Like, you walk past homeless people all day. Right. You know what I'm saying? Never think about it ever in your life. Don't tell me that. But I feel like the protest definitely gave so much more extra fire to Black Lives Matter to the point where we started seeing people, especially companies and everything like that, come out just with ridiculous stuff, man. Mm-hmm. You know, from some people like Ben and Jerry who went to the over extreme to tell you how they feel, to even some of like I forget the name of the restaurant we saw recently on Instagram that basically in Georgia that's basically saying, it's not even just all lives matter, but all y'all just need to shut up. You know what I'm saying? Just long story shorts. So
I need to know about that. Wait,
give us a little bit more information on that.
The sign didn't directly say that. No, the sign didn't directly say that, but if you read it, the gist of it is, and I'll pull that up later so everybody gets a clarity of what I'm saying, man. But just my point is this: I feel like it brought the conversation back to the forefront, and I think it brought it to the forefront in a good way because you're able to weed out a lot of shit. Like, you're not seeing people, I feel like, placate people at this point, at this moment. You're actually seeing actual allies step up, and you're seeing actual people stand apart from that, and that's a good thing. I think that's what riots brought, and I think that some of that anger did bring out. Like you was mentioning, the riot was a good thing, and I think it brought that out. Yeah, man. So, but I want to get back to some of the things with voting, especially back with you, Darian, because I think that you didn't mention, again, why you're here. You did some amazing stuff at your high school when it comes to gathering people together for a Black Student Union, and reminding them, again, the importance of voting. Speak to us about what made you want to start that up, especially somebody your age.
Oh, wow. Okay. All my life, I've been let me start this off. At a young age, I was aware that I was going to be seen in the world as a Black man regardless of my age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I understood the need for there to be a safe place for people like me. My freshman year of high school, I'm excited. I go to the bathroom, I see KKK and niggers spray painted on the walls in almost every bathroom. And I was bothered by the fact that nobody else was bothered. I asked some other Black kids, friends of mine, I was like, yo, it's just there. I was like, oh. It's just there. So then what's next? And I was getting frustrated because the more I'm asked, the more I try and bring it to what's next? It gets painted over. It's back the next day.
Yeah.
So sophomore year, I decide, all right, what needs to? I had many inspirations, but I saw a show Netflix, Dear White People. Yep. And I was like, before that though, I saw the movie. I was like, okay, Dear White People. The character created something where she addressed the majority about the issues, but instead of addressing it, I wanted to create a space where we can discuss it first. Because before you can address the issue, you have to recognize that it's there. So in my senior year, after years of fighting for it, I finally got the organization started. It's called BOND, Black Organization Nurturing Diversity. That's because it was not acceptable, or it was feared that it'd be called a Black Student Union.
Feared, you got it right, feared.
Yeah, it's fair.
Because they were like, in the conversation I had, they were like, well, everybody else too, if it was students, why does it have to be Black? Every other club in here would be a white student union.
Right. Yeah.
there's a Catholic club, there's a Republicans club, there's a Democrats club.
It's clearly a Confederate club.
Exactly. Right. So I was like, what? I mean, you know, what type of question is that? What?
They have this strategy where they try to convince us that putting our name on something is militarizing it when it's literally just naming it for us.
Yeah.
So I settled. I was like, okay, nothing happens without compromise. So you know what? I'll work with you. Bond, Black Organization Nurturing Diversity. And for the past year, we've been working on exactly that. First semester was establishing ourselves as a Black organization, because I wanted to be clear that, yes, we changed the name, making Nurturing Diversity, but it is clear that we are a Black organization. Everybody is welcome, but our purpose is to establish a community for Black students where they can feel safe and feel respected. So in that, we open arms to everybody, but we're going to be very clear in the fact that we're going to educate you on the importance of our struggle within the community of the school, with the community of the world. And so, you know, I've been proud to be a part of that organization, and we've had guest speakers come in and talk about us, the hardships of coming up and trying to get a job, trying to be your own business, trying to start a business, stuff like that. And I have graduated, so, you know.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now, like you were saying more than ever on the topic of voting, a lot of seniors going out, me going out, will be able to vote now. And I feel like, you know, Trump being in the office was like a kick in the face. Like, okay, yeah, this is what happens when you don't pay attention.
Yeah, I feel bad for you, man. So this was your first. Will this be your first actual national election you'll be voting on? This will be your first national election you'll be able to vote on? Yeah, so you missed Obama. Like, I feel bad for you that this is the first time you get to do this.
It's not even a bad thing for them to be this being their first time, because they know what it's like before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you almost can be like, oh, I can't wait till it's my
See the
turn. You know what I mean?
I saw Obama. I stood with my mom in the line for hours as she,
That's what's
you know,
up.
and for everything my mother voted in, I was in that line. And I feel like a lot of, in my I just learned yesterday, I'm still Gen Z, I guess. But we were in the lines with our parents waiting for hours, because our parents instilled in us the importance of voting.
Yeah.
And in the fear that something like this would happen, even though it did. But yeah, I mean, I'm grateful, although I couldn't vote for Obama, but now, because I know what it was like, or I know what it is like, I understand completely the importance of my vote.
Awesome, man. You know, and I brought you up here because I do want to speak about this newer generation of voters. You know, like Knots, I worked voter registration. I've been able to have these conversations with a lot of people from different age groups. And one age group that disturbs me was the younger group. You know what I mean? And that younger group's getting older, but the younger group I was meeting when I was first out there was so disillusioned with voting. You know, it was an argument. You know what I mean? Like it was an absolute argument. And then the first time I started doing this was around the time of Mike Brown. And I felt that one thing that could catch people of a certain age was the fact that, one, Mike Brown was around their age, and two, the person who was holding up any of this was a sheriff who was locally elected. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I had to get to that point. Let's speak all of y'all can chime in about this. Getting another of this younger generation active to not just vote once, but active to vote consistently. You know what I mean? And actually be part of this process, and look past, I guess, some of the propaganda they might see that dissuades them from voting.
The first thing I want to say is that the dissuasion from voting is 400 years in the making. It's been systematic oppression and disillusion for so long that our voices don't matter, that we're not human. And so that's why I have such a passion about Amplify Action, because our mission, it's literally in our mission statement, to cultivate an environment where we feel empowered to want to act. We completely understand why you all are dissuaded and why you haven't seen the system work for you. It's worked against you. It disproportionately imprisons you.
Especially young black men.
Especially,
like
that's what I'm saying, black men.
Yeah.
It disproportionately imprisons young black men, especially, that's why I'm here for cannabis. People have lost their lives because the right people are not empowering their community, and the judge is not black, and the prosecutor is not black, and they want to see these people stifled. And so if we're voting, and we're voting for our sheriff, we're voting for our tax commissioner, and we have all of those people and they're coming from our community, then we're not as suppressed anymore, because we are literally in power and are empowered. And so I believe the first step is to is to break down that systematic oppression, that systematic feeling of, oh, my voice doesn't matter. I'm not going to go to the polls. Why would I stand for 2 hours? It's rigged.
Yeah.
That's what Amplify first begins to do. And then we're going to amplify access to the polls through rides, through voter information, and then amplify accountability by holding our elected officials accountable, which in turn breeds more faith in the electoral process because we're holding the people that govern us accountable.
Yeah, man.
And then finally placing black men like you in these positions that you are elected officials. So if we're in these positions of power, we're going to have more faith in our electoral process because we're represented, and that representation means everything.
Yeah. How do you feel about getting a younger generation involved in voting, and how can we keep them voting?
I feel like we have to utilize the tools available to us. You know, in the year 2020, social media and technology is such a big thing. As the amount of ridiculousness I see pushed on my Instagram, rarely ever will I see anything about, you know, elections, about voter, unless it's on the Shade Room or Baller Alert. And
Thank you,
know,
Shade Room and Baller Alert. Actually, yeah, they've been actually very active.
Rarely, and very helpful in keeping us aware. But people pay for ads, people pay for a bunch of different space on these platforms, but it's not being useful. It's not being used in the right ways. And I feel like there's that sense of wanting to keep us down and out of the loop, because it's not like, you know, of course, if people were aware, they would want to help and want to give themselves to the cause. But it's the fact that that information isn't being made available to us.
Yeah.
And it's not just being not made available to us, it's being kept from us.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what, and speaking of, I remember this one story when I was out doing voter registration, and it spoke a lot about how brothers ourselves feel about voting. I was up in Oakland City, matter of fact. I was in Oakland City Station, and I was getting somebody registered to vote. And I remember approaching this lady. She was with her kids, and she was with her dude. Obviously, they were together. And so I approached him first, like, hey, bro, you want to get registered to vote? I was giving him the whole spill. And before I can get out my mouth, he was telling me about how everything rigged. He was going down the Illuminatis and all that. But the telling thing was his girl said, I want to. So she grabs the board and she starts filling it out. And as she's filling it out, he's still giving me this lecture about everything is wrong. And I remember telling him, and he's ended it with, and then watch, you're going to start seeing women take over everything. And I told him, I said, but brother, you're watching your woman register to vote, and you're literally arguing with me about it. Like there's a reason why you see certain things, man. Yeah. Representation matters, and you need to make sure that you are represented. Like, why don't purposely be on the sideline and then be wondering why stuff is going on. You know what I mean? So I think it is imperative that what you're doing with Amplify Action, because you are seeing a generation of brothers who are totally just disillusioned when it comes to voting, whether it be they've had so many issues with police. Like, you come down here and you speak to people, they don't know whether or not they can vote. I'm on probation, parole, I'm on this for that. They have no clue. You know what I'm saying? And some of them have been burdened with that since they was in their teens.
And there's actually a small section of voters that are in jail, depending on your charge, depending on what you have going on, your prior records. You actually can vote from in jail.
Yeah.
So that's an outreach that we are definitely going to reach into. Even your experience, like you said, is bred directly out of people not pausing long enough on black men. I served as the press associate for Tom Steyer on his presidential campaign.
I remember that.
And it was kind of like people, we tried to reach a lot of demographics, but people kind of gave up. They're like, oh, black men are too hard. And they would... Black men are too hard, and they would kind of move on to the next demographic. So that's why it's so important that somebody literally focuses on you all and your needs.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I agree, man. But I think that just that does bother me, that I did see that there is a disillusion when it comes to brothers, and we definitely need both sides of our community to be active out here if you really want to see things actually change and actually go forward.
Yeah, all sides, actually. I mean, just seeing you two here, it's great representation, because, like you said, we were out there in the front lines before a few years ago in different ways. Voter registration, trying to talk to brothers, trying to talk to the younger generation. That sounds me crazy saying that.
Yeah.
But talking to them like, yo, this is why it matters. You know what I'm saying? You like to smoke weed, then you need to understand that this is legislation going on right now.
Exactly.
You have trouble finding a job right now in your field. These are the people who are going to fight for you.
Exactly.
These are the funds they're trying to bring to the table.
Exactly.
And this is how I always said, that's how you make a difference with the younger generation. Show them how it matters. Talk to them about their own issues, and then talk to them about their grandparents and parents. This is why they can't get the medical aid that they need. This is why they're in pain. And then you'll start to see somewhat of a change. But like you said, with the change of technology, and like you mentioned with the activation, with the formation of organizations like yours, that's why I know this generation is going to make so much more forward progress than like the last two combined.
Yeah. Let me tell you how y'all made forward progress, right? Because I actually had to use the internet today myself, right? And I thank the youngsters for doing that for me. I was looking today, and I've heard the term defunded over and over again for the last couple of hours to the point where I'm like, and so actually I take that back. Some of the younger generation maybe jump up and say, let me find out what defunded is. I see y'all spreading memes left and right, and I don't think you know what you're talking about. And then I saw Donald Trump today, and I was like, oh yeah, let me just look what this actually is. Let's talk about defunding the police department, man, because that is the super hot topic right now, and I think that the word defunded actually needs a publicist at this point. It's getting drugged through the mud. Defunded isn't the worst words ever. We've actually seen things defunded plenty of times. We've seen the education system defunded over and over and over and over again. It's really just you taking out some of the funds, and then when we have this conversation, especially about police defunding, you really get into how much police actually get budgeted.
Talk about it.
Like we looking at Minneapolis, what they say they had a budget of $200 million, and the cops had like $190 million of it. Like, what? Are you serious?
They're driving Chargers.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like that's ridiculous, man. So let's talk about that, because again, that's one of the things that spurred from the protest, that we're actually now taking a deep dive into what police actually do. What is your conversation? How do y'all feel? And any one of y'all can jump in about this, about the conversation about defunding the police department, and whether or not that'll be a positive or a negative thing on the community, and just our overall goals, even what we're looking to try to do.
I think besides just making a bunch of people mad,
Yeah.
it's a good thing, because it's gonna put you in check. People take their money seriously.
Yes.
Once you take some of that away, they're gonna reevaluate how they approach different things. You take their money away, not permanently, but until they restructure their system in a way that it benefits the community truly. Because if you were to look back and think, what is all this extra money going to? Like, what do you need this other $100 million for?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. What do you need it for? Like the things that could be from libraries to arts to, I know it sounds like
homelessness.
a super,
No, you're not.
Like
You're dead
liberal
on
right
with
now.
it. I mean, job support, the things
Yeah.
like that. I think the one stat that I saw this week was the country spends $300 billion on police force. And that was just one figure, $300 billion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You said $200 million just for Minneapolis.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's going to militarization of the local police. That's going to, and this one needs to stop. They need to get the cops out of the schools. Because once they said you are not responsible for protecting these kids, why the hell are you here? They got to go. They need to put not private security. Let me don't say that. But if you're paying police to protect the school and all they're doing is coming after our kids, majorly, then that needs to go. That's got to change. You know what I mean? That's extra money that could go somewhere else quickly, and that'll change so much of how our kids are treated in the schools. I know you ain't got no kids yet, but
Oh wait,
do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll take that back then. Shoot, well, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Right.
Like on crack, y'all.
I thought you graduated high school too. My fault. My fault. But no, that's always been one of the big things that I always pushed. Whatever school my daughter, she just graduated with you, class of 2020. So I've been there with her the whole time. So I had conversations with the community service officer and the administration, like, what do they really do? And it's just like they just there to really instill fear to make kids behave. So that's just one aspect of it. But
Early
go ahead,
training.
'cause I could
Negative
be-
reinforcement.
Yeah, that's it.
It doesn't work. Of course, I'm speaking on behalf of my organization, so I won't go very into specifics with supporting defunding. But I do want to say I definitely agree with the fact that that the police force needs to be more diversified and split into different things. We have seen young males be killed because they're having a panic attack and it's perceived as scaring the law enforcement, and they just get killed on arrival.
Yeah.
There needs to be, if there's going to be defunding, there needs to be a very, very strict and very astute organization, so that there is a framework, so that everything is set. There's the mental health, there's the domestic violence, there are these people to call on, so that when the police are taken away, that there's not lawlessness. And also, it also gives us more of a chance to empower each other by allowing us to have these domestic violence coalitions, mental health coalitions. That's another chance for us to empower ourselves and create this environment where we have more of a voice.
Yeah. And I don't want it to come off like I'm anti-police, because I'm not anti-police. I actually feel like police and teachers get the worst end of the stick out here, because they get paid the least. You know what I mean? And I'm like, how do you expect people to, raise your children and protect your neighborhood if you're paying them less than somebody, you know what I'm saying, who might just go work at a fast food place and could care less about any of this? You know what I mean? And you need them to bear a lot of this stress. I'm not anti-police. I totally believe that defunding can go a long way, especially after I learned what it was. Defunding defunding can go a long way because one, why are you giving these people so much money? It's almost like going through the NCAA process. Like if you give the football team all the money on the campus, they run the campus. Period. Like there's no other conversation about this. Like you can tell me how popular tennis is all you want to. This sport runs this school, and that's what you're basically learning now with this conversation is that you had a fear that the police ran your world, but now you know it. You know what I'm saying? Now you absolutely know for a fact. You can open the book and go look. Yeah, they run this. They run this, and they know they run this because they're getting all the money. So I am pro defunding it, actually. And you don't have to rip it down to the bones. I'm not with demolishing it because, again, I'm not going to a private situation. You already seen what a private prison system can do, so I definitely don't want a private police system. But I think that you can put some checks and balances in place when you do start pulling some money.
Yeah, it has to do with, I mean, how much time we got? You really want to talk about because you really start talking about the privatization of them and who's selling these military products from what part of the government, what businesses do they have, where the kickbacks coming in. That's why I said, how much time do we really have?
Where's the Reaganomics shirt?
You can do this all day because I call Ronald Reagan a drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can chop up how stuff happens all day through here.
So that's why I was saying I don't know how much time we have, but that's really why it's a moneymaker. You know what I mean? Just why they come after black and brown people because we're another resource of money. We're like a subscription plan to them. You know what I mean? They catch us on these little charges, for example, out there doing a protest, or you're resisting arrest for crossing the street.
Or worse, you got caught with a joint.
Oh, perfect example. You get caught with that outside the city of Atlanta because you know in the city of Atlanta it's allowed. But you get arrested for that, right? They said, oh, it's just a small charge. So you go out, you pay your fee, you pay your bond, or maybe you don't have a bond, right? And you say, I can't afford to pay the $500. Well, now you can go on probation. Well, now you got to do a probation officer. So now you got monthly fees. And now you're on probation for what, 12 to 18 months. And not only that, now you got to deal with not only not getting arrested, you can't have another interaction with the police in a negative way. Otherwise, your probation gets violated. So it's money, 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 money.
You're an employee of the state.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you become an employee of the state the minute you get into the system. So I'm definitely
I don't want to get off too far.
I'm definitely with defunding, but don't get rid of it. I could the privatization of the police is something that I'd leave. You know what I'm saying?
If you can gut education, you can defund police.
I definitely agree with that, man. Going into November, especially after today with the primaries, we got to turn our new energy into November. We have new Senate seats up for grabs. Shout out to Pastor Raphael Warnock, who's running. We have new laws that's going to be put in place. Hopefully, I know cash bail was up for vote today. Yeah, so we have a lot of new things that's going to be on the ballot here, man. What are y'all feelings going towards November? Like, do you feel like you're seeing people actually? You feel like the energy we're seeing tonight is going to maintain going into November with some people?
I think it will. Actually, when I left the polling place, there was an older black woman that was working, and we were telling each other, I don't know, this feels different. It feels a little bit more like a collective consciousness has risen and more people are willing to get involved. And like we said, more people are looking for the next steps. So moving forward into November, Amplify Action is definitely going to be creating this forum for black men. We're going to have town halls, virtual events. We're going to foster first understanding what black men need in order to increase their faith in the electoral system, and then moving forward we're going to be fostering that environment where there's more of a space for black men to talk and to get their needs met, so that when November comes we are more informed about everything that's on the ballot, about who to vote for at a local and national level, and then that allows us to begin to grow from here, and this 2020 election be the first step in what we see as a large amount of progression for you all.
What about you, Darian, man? Because you really have you got to bring the kids in. Like, we trusting you to do this. It's all on you. Yeah, it's all on you.
You the future.
I don't know. I mean, I'm optimistic. I think right now there is a good energy going, but I'm concerned as to how long it's gonna last. Yeah. 400. 400 years. Our people were oppressed and desensitized to what it means to be a part of society, essentially. So what is the next 400 years going to look like? How long is this energy going to go? And I'm afraid that this year, 2020, or the next 4 years, the next 8 years, whoever's going to be in office and whoever gets out is going to be rough, because we're still in that transitional phase of the collective consciousness. Right. Like, everybody for the first time is just waking up. Yeah. So, okay, now we're waking up. Now we're going to do it. It's a almost nearly decade-a-year process of being woken up, and there's going to be some right and wrongs made, but the fact that we're doing it is what's going to be important. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not.
No, you good. You good. Yeah.
But for my people, for my age group, right? What's gonna make us vote is seeing this, like being in these streets, being in these streets and protesting and being a part, and the fact that we're being challenged by other people like us. You know what I mean? I have friends who feel like they don't feel comfortable touching the subject. They don't feel comfortable protesting because their friends aren't doing it. We're being challenged by ourselves.
Yes.
And we're having to look at ourselves in the mirror and being like, what part of history did you contribute today?
Yeah.
The side that does nothing and lets the system that diminishes a culture, or the side of history that benefits and grows.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me, man. Well, hopefully we all going to be on the right side of this, man. And I personally feel like I think that this energy is going to run into November. I think that it's very important that it does. You know, again, of course, president election is something that stays on people's minds, but you have Senate seats up for grabs. You know what I mean? And like I mentioned, you talking about the only reason Trump's even here is because he didn't get impeached. You know what I mean? Like you talking about this 13 seats in the Senate up for grabs this year. You know,
no, he did get impeached.
And
well, I'm saying like, well.
You mean like
You didn't-
all the way
Yeah,
out?
all the way out. Excuse me.
That's
all
the
way
part
out.
they had to find some criminal.
Yeah, they had to.
But
Yeah.
just to impress upon everyone the importance of local voting again, like you said, there are Senate seats up for grab. Barack was a senator. So while we're feeling like our votes don't count,
Yeah.
there were people that voted Barack into being a senator. Then he got that national spotlight. Even if you feel like Barack didn't change a lot, there's still a lot of sparks that he ignited that will continue to change the world. So again, it all starts with that local, with that one voice amplifying, or one voice changes things.
All right. Before we get out of here, I'd like to hear what each of you feel like we're going to see next year politically wise. Like, do you feel like we're going to wake up and see Donald Trump after we're going to still be dealing with another 4 years of Donald Trump after next year, or what do you feel like we're going to see the political landscape look like next year this time?
With it being so close, because November's not far away.
Not at all.
We've been through a hell of a first half of 2020.
Yeah, man.
So I think that's going to stay in a lot of people's consciousness and understand. What's up, G? And get them to understand, like, yo, this is the one time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, y'all played with it before, can't play with it no more.
Yeah.
He said, you looting, we shooting. And this is before he knew about Antifa, anybody else being involved with it. So
Yeah.
who do you think he was talking to?
Yeah.
Who was he talking about?
Yeah.
So a lot of these black conservatives who still say, I'm still voting for Trump. And I'm like, oh, so you just hate women. You hate other people. And that's basically what you're telling me at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is fine. You know, you're open to your own opinion, as wrong as it may be. But I think, like I said, with this technology that we have, with this collectiveness that's going on now, and with this momentum, he shook, and he should be.
I believe it too.
You know what I mean? They just introduced some new legislation. I was reading on the way here, so I don't know everything about it. That Kamala Harris and Senator Booker, they were just introducing a federal guidelines for changing law enforcement. And I can't speak to it. Like I said, I was just reading it on the way here. But one of the things that stood out was they wanted a kind of a national board of watching over law enforcement. And with those type of initiatives, that should have been there already. And I think Barack even introduced something like that during his term, but this is different because of the times. I think with that kind of legislation and that kind of energy that we're putting out there, that's why I think this year going forward, it's really going to make a big difference.
What about you, Ariel?
Launching at this time, Amplify, I see the future. I'm sorry, let me start that over. I see this election being very important, and Amplify is launching particularly at this time because we want to create somewhat of a popcorn effect. If we have Atlanta, there's a new person that's running that's a black male, and he's starting to gain traction here. He's thinking about running, and then it's happening in Nashville, and it's happening in Louisville, and it's happening in Tucson, Arizona. You see these little popcorn kernels popping off, and eventually you have a whole bag.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to create, is that traction where, again, you start with increasing the comfortability of black men in the electoral process, and we are looking to see more of us on the ballot next year, more black men holding their elected officials accountable, knowing how to speak and what to speak to, and what metrics to look at in order to see what they are doing and aren't doing.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in the future, is an amplification of those black voices.
Yeah.
I think we live in a world covered by the veil of ignorance. I feel like that is an excuse often used, but that we don't have that anymore. I mean, we've had a man, I mean, he's not acting like a president, that's why I call him a man, legit use social media to threaten, scare, and protect threaten and scare those who oppose him, and protect those who do real people, like good people, harm. With that said, though, I don't know if there's enough confidence in Biden to put him in a space to kick Trump out. As bad as Trump is, he's horrible. I'm just saying, will we as a community be able to put our trust in him? Because we don't want to kick out one evil just for another. Yeah. You know, we can't let Trump stand, but we cannot put somebody that's just going to be just as bad or just as ignorant. I'm not saying Joe Biden is nearly as bad as Trump in the terms of how he, I can't see Joe Biden tweeting if they start looting and start shooting.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but I don't want it to be like I had a discussion with my friend the other day. They were like, "How Trump's still alive?" I was like, yeah, "Well, think about it. If he were to pass, God forbid, and the vice president move into space, do you want him in there either?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how better is that? I feel like we just have to pick the best of a worst situation, but it's our fault that we're in that situation.
It is. Not to cut you off, man, but one thing I want to leave us with is the importance of voting. I feel one thing that we don't do when it comes to voting, especially when it comes to presidents, is vote for down the road. We normally vote for what we want and what we need. And if you think about it, a president should be voted in for 8 years. You're not booking him for 4 years. You're hoping this person stays around for 8 years. So with that said, you're voting for somebody who won't be able to vote for a good while. They're young. They don't know anything about this. I think that often what we do is vote for our immediate needs, and we don't look at a generation down the road yet. And that's where I really hope that that's something that pops in people's minds as we move forward. Whether or not you agree with Joe Biden, I definitely don't agree with Donald Trump. But what I do agree with is, as you start voting, start thinking about that. I'm voting for a kid right now who might be 8 or 9, not necessarily myself. Right. I want to make sure that this kid has a better chance. I was talking to my mom about a couple months ago about, she was bothered by the fact that so many people work for other people nowadays, meaning like Uber, Lyft, all these other things. She said, I can't believe y'all just can't find regular jobs. And I said, well, you voted against that forever ago. Just to be completely honest with you, I'm like, yeah, I've watched y'all vote. Like, I've watched you and my father vote over time. Y'all voted that away years ago because of what you wanted in that moment. And she paused for a second, thought about it, like, yeah, we can go down various laws and stuff, but yeah, y'all voted against a lot of stuff that would have helped me. But you didn't think about it because I was in like middle school. You know what I'm saying? So we need to start thinking on that level. How are we helping another generation, not necessarily how we're helping ourselves? So I definitely appreciate y'all coming through tonight and definitely helping us start this conversation that will continue all the way up until November. We will have different politicians in the studio. We will have different activists in the studio to continue this conversation, because the energy must continue. It can't be something that just goes out because we just feel like it. This isn't COVID, and COVID isn't done either. This isn't COVID. You just can't feel like it's done and now it's done. So I definitely appreciate y'all coming up. Please let people know how they can find y'all on social media and how they can find more information about each one of your organizations.
You guys, am I looking anywhere?
Yeah.
But yeah, no. You guys can feel free to hit up my main page, Son of Summer, Instagram. My organization, Black Bond, just BOND, on Instagram as well, KMHS Bond. I just want to lastly say that it's been amazing speaking with you all. It's been amazing being part of a revolution, because we really need to start using that word. This isn't just a series of protests. This is a revolution. So thank you.
I'm very grateful to be here as well. So grateful to be a part of this conversation. Like I said, we need all of us as turning parts in order to make progress. So you can find Amplify Action on all social media at Amp Your Vote, AMP. Oh, sorry. Let me start it over. My apologies. You can find it on all social media, Amp Our Vote. That's AMPOURVOTE, Amp Our Vote on all social media.
You got to practice your Jay-Z, man. You got to one take hold that.
I know, right?
Like, watch this. Anyway, at Hip Hop Gets Back on everything social media. We need a TikTok. Do we need a TikTok? We don't need no TikTok. Do I?
Hip Hop Gets Back need a TikTok?
Listen.
Bro, if I ever see you on there dancing the Secret Out West,
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen, but that's why my daughter's about to go to work. Anyway, so it's on at Hip Hop Gets Back on everything. That's Giz with an S. My personal social media is DJ Knotts, KNOTTS. That's the best way to reach me. The foundation's HHGB Foundation. The website, hiphopgetsback.com. I'm a rap because I could keep going. But no, like I said, I do appreciate being here as well. you know, I enjoy these conversations. I enjoy the action that comes from these conversations. And speaking of that, we need to build some more.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Especially with you guys being at your personal positions right now, what you're about to be in, there's a lot of information that needs to get traded on, disseminated.
Yeah.
Even better, look at the SAT words popping
Yeah,
off.
man.
Yeah, but seriously, all jokes aside, we need to make that happen. I'm sure we have a lot of other collective groups and influential people between us that we could get on board with. But yeah, we're gonna make that happen. That's our promise.
Great. And I appreciate all y'all for coming through. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight. And that's Cash Color Cannabis, High Level of Conversation, sponsored by AtlantaBizClothing.com. Make sure you shop at AtlantaBizClothing.com.